On June 15th, bloodshed broke out on the India-China border. India and China share the longest disputed border in the world, but no bullet has been fired in nearly 50 years. 20 Indian soldiers died in the incident. The Chinese government and media has not provided casualty figures for Chinese troops, and no funerals have been held. US media reports that according to US intelligence information, about 35 Chinese soldiers were killed or seriously injured. On August 31st, there was another military dispute between the two sides. Tibetans, in exile, joined the Indian troops to fight against the Chinese army. According to Indian media reports, India won a partial victory. The line of actual control runs through the Pangong Lake. Most of the lakes are located in the Tibet area of mainland China. On September 7th, the Chinese accused the Indian army of shooting at the Chinese army in the vicinity of Pangong. However, the Indian army claimed that it was the Chinese troops who shot into the sky to threaten India. Since then, the confrontation between the two armies at the border has escalated. The Indian media, Indian Express, reported that China deployed 2 brigades in one basin, cutting off the Indian troops' access to the 10th and 13th patrol points. In the past 20 days in the border confrontation, Indian troops have prevailed, and 6 new mountain peaks were occupied from the Chinese border. The Indian-China border confrontation may continue, and both sides are preparing for it. The climate in conflict areas is extreme. The roads connecting with the outside world are closed in winter. Before October, India needs to transport and store about 200,000 tons of materials to support the troops for the future 6 months. By then, the temperature in these areas may drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius to minus 45 degrees Celsius. Deploying below 3,600 meters above sea level requires extremely cold clothing, and above this altitude, special clothing and climbing equipment are required. The Indian military is supplying special winter clothes for more than 30,000 soldiers deployed on the front lines of the confrontation. The geographical environment on the side of China's actual control line is better. It is on the leeward side and has longer sunshine time. The terrain is also flatter. It is more convenient to build barracks or deliver supplies. A new satellite image released on Twitter by a professional analyst shows that China has increased its deployment about 180 kilometers south of Pangong Lake. It also shows that they have built a surface-to-air missile base and other infrastructure on the shore of a lake at the borders of China, India, and Nepal. Indian media believe that there have been 4 new Chinese camps in the Pangong Lake area. Previously, there was only 1 in this area. There were thousands of Chinese soldiers deployed on the line of actual control to the Sino-Indian border. Nearby, China also possesses hundreds of artillery tanks and other mechanized equipment. India even doubts whether the Communist Army has activated the S-400 air defense missile system. Forbes News reported that according to satellite photos, the number of fighter jets deployed by the Chinese army in the border area has doubled. China's official media, Global Times, said China has deployed about 270 H-6 bombers and various standoff cruise missiles. Some are preparing for future wars on the Sino-Indian border. Videos showing some Chinese soldiers crying. They are suspected of being sent to the China-India border. Some analysts believe that after October, the high-altitude winter battlefield will benefit the Indian Army, which has more sophisticated equipment and tactics. If the war is protracted, China's mature infrastructure at the border and the overall military strength will show more advantages. But the results of a war does not only rely on military strength. The rapid changes in the international environment and China's internal situation will also affect the direction of the war. Why did such a serious military confrontation suddenly erupt between China and India after nearly half a century of peace? Under the government of the Republic of China, now the Taiwan government, the British and India signed a series of treaties with the Tibetan local government for border security and trade needs and established the McMahon Line at the boundary between the two sides. But the government of the Republic of China does not recognize it. Around the establishment of the Chinese Communist Party in 1949, India occupied approximately 90,000 square kilometers of territory south of the McMahon Line, as well as some other disputed territories. In 1962, China and India went to war due to border and territorial issues, and the Indian army repeatedly failed. Indian Prime Minister Nehru asked for international intervention. In November of 1962, the United States stepped in and supported the Indian army with material supplies. To the world's surprise, the Chinese army suddenly announced a ceasefire at the same time and automatically withdrew from the retaken territory. One possible reason is that the CCP doesn't care much about the territory. Mao Zedong, the leader of the Communist Party of China at the time, launched the Great Leap Forward campaign and caused extreme difficulties in the national economy. China experienced a 3-year famine. Mao was facing a crisis of power and instability. Mao restored his fallen authority through this victorious war. At that time, China, which was extremely impoverished, was unable to sustain a prolonged war, and the CCP was also guarding against the Taiwanese government. In other words, with the retreat of the Chinese army, the Sino-Indian border issue returned to a state before the war, and China even lost the extra thousands of kilometers of land. Statistics show that the land reclaimed and abandoned by China is richer than any other place in Tibet. In 1987, the Indian Parliament passed a decree to formally establish the Arunachal Pradesh, south of the McMahon Line. So far, nearly 1 million Indian immigrants have lived here. For decades, the China-India boundary has not been officially demarcated, and the two sides have different perceptions of the actual line of control. Now, in 2020, Xi Jinping, the top leader of the Chinese Communist Party, faces the same situation as Mao Zedong did in 1962. The Sino-US trade war and pandemic have severely damaged China's economy. The US Trump administration led allies to fight back against communism. Xi's handling of the Hong Kong issue made him lose more international friends. This year, Xi faced unprecedented criticism. Xi Jinping seems to be keen to learn from Mao Zedong, and perhaps he is trying a small-scale military conflict with India to see if he can restore certain prestige for himself. If all goes well, whether it is a conflict with India or with Taiwan, it might bring China into a state of war. Xi can use more stringent measures to control the country. Thereby, he could suppress criticism. When Xi Jinping came to power, the construction of the roads close to the China-India border began to accelerate. In the initial China-India conflict, on June 15th, the two sides accused each other of crossing the line of actual control and launching provocative military operations. So who is more likely to lie? The Indian government held a grand state funeral for the dead soldiers, but China has not reported any funerals related to this matter. 2 days later, on June 17th, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, led by the Chinese Communist Party, approved an anti-epidemic loan of US $750 million applied by the Indian government. The headquarters of the bank is in Beijing, and a Chinese Communist Party official is the president. People wonder, is the CCP trying to use money to appease India? Xi Jinping's initial temptation suffered a major blow, and his advisors probably did not give him accurate information. India is no longer the India of 1962. For more than 60 years after India's independence in 1947, the socialist Nehru family led the Indian National Congress, and the family has been in power for nearly 50 years. In 1962, India had a poor economy, weak military, and corrupt officials. In the 1990s, the Bharatiya Janata Party won the election in India, and the country began to abandon socialism. Modi was elected Prime Minister in 2014, and he comprehensively reformed and promoted a market economy. From 2014 to March 2020, India's quarterly year-on-year GDP growth were all positive, and the highest growth rate reached to 9.7%. Economic growth has made India more capable of investing in the military. In the third year of Modi's administration, India became the fourth largest military spending country in the world. From April to June 2020, India's quarterly growth data suddenly plummeted, all of which was related to the disaster caused by Beijing's concealment of the epidemic. In the past 26 consecutive days, the number of newly confirmed cases in India has exceeded 75,000 per day. The loss of control of the epidemic has caused continuous damage and loss to this country, with 1.3 billion people. The rating agency ICRA said in an early July report that India's GDP is expected to shrink by 9.5% this fiscal year. During the Nehru era, India implemented the so-called non-aligned policy. In fact, the Nehru family was closer to the communist Soviet Union and secretly countered the United States. The Modi government is gradually moving closer to the US. President Trump proposed the Indo-Pacific strategy in 2017, which replaced the previous Asia-Pacific strategy. The new strategy is to establish a US, Japan, India triangle alliance to counter the expansion of the CCP. In 2020, this plan will be renewed as a US, Japan, India, Australia four-nation strategic alliance. India is stepping up its purchase of advanced US weapons and equipment. India will invite Australia to participate in a joint naval exercise to be held in the Bay of Bengal at the end of this year, and it will be the first military exercise with Taiwan by the US, Japan, India, and Australia alliance.
I think everyone knows is the United States, India, Australia, and Japan, first of all, represent four extraordinarily solid democracies. And I think that's critically important because while interests will drive all our nations to make choices in the policy sphere in the Indo-Pacific and beyond, shared values that complement shared interests create a solid foundation.
With these backgrounds, the Modi government has shown an extremely tough attitude towards Beijing. After the conflict in June, India used state funerals to bury soldiers. In early July, Modi personally visited Ladakh on the Sino-Indian border, sending a strong political signal to Beijing. Now the Indian government strictly reviews or restricts the investment of Chinese companies and Chinese imported products, comprehensively bans Chinese company Huawei in the 5G field. Till September 2nd, India has banned 224 Chinese apps in total, and once again refused to join the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partner, which was promoted by the CCP. Indian state-owned refineries decided to stop sending crude oil import tender documents to Chinese companies like CNOOC, United Petrochemical, and PetroChina, and they decided to stop fuel import transactions, cooperation with China Aviation Oil, PetroChina, and United Petrochemical subsidiaries. They stopped renting Chinese tankers for import. Indian governments strictly review the visas for businessmen, scholars, industry experts, and advocacy groups from China. The All India Merchants Association, which includes nearly 70 million Indian businessmen and 400,000 Indian trading companies, decided to boycott Chinese products. On the Indian issue, Xi Jinping's top consultants may choose the information that Xi would like to hear. We could tell this by what they repeated to the report to Xi on China's economic issues. By 2020, China's per capita income is likely to reach US $12,700. According to the United Nations or World Bank indicators, it will be a high-income country. If Xi continues to fight with India, Xi will face the most taboo situation for military leaders, fighting on multiple fronts. But it seems like Xi has not received support for his strategy. The complex situation within the CCP prevents Xi from showing any weakness. Even if Xi Jinping wants a certain degree of concession, his political opponent, the former leader of the Jiang Zemin group, will try to stop it. At the 2017 CCP's major meeting, Xi abandoned his close comrade, Wang Qishan, in exchange for the ostensible support from the Jiang group. Wang Huning, a senior official in the Jiang group who is good at preaching and packaging communist ideology, has also been reused by Xi. Wang holds the CCP's propaganda department, and most of the Chinese official media faithfully fulfill the wishes of the Jiang group. Whether it is the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, or the Sino-Indian border, the CCP's propaganda department is advocating war and promoting the culture of war wolf. Inspired by the CCP culture, lots of Chinese people are also feeling warlike. On September 21st, the two sides announced they have agreed to stop sending more troops to the front line. Therefore, in the China-India border issue, whether Xi Jinping moves forward or retreats, it is not easy to make a decision. The year of 2020 is full of changes. Xi and his party may not have planned what to do next, but what will happen tomorrow may be outside of their plan. Thanks for watching. We are actively growing this channel so we can continue to bring you the best information available out of China. Please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comment section. Your feedback and participation is greatly appreciated.